Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, or good night, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to this another episode of the Saudi Chris Show. As customary tonight, it's educational content night. And I must say to you, educational content is not just about what is being taught in school or what we learn, but right across the board. Once we actually get solid information that change our life, I personally see that as education. But somehow we'll gear towards not just a experience that one would expect every night. But I can say to you, tonight is one that will enlighten you. Tonight is one that I believe all of us, including myself, will learn so much because our host tonight is a gentleman who is very experienced, his knowledge, wide knowledge. In local term, we'll say he's the boss. So the boss for tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is no other than I don't even know which what would I say, accolades to put before his name. But for now, he is Mr. Paul Blake. Mr. Paul Blake, welcome to the Starry Crest Show, sir.
Ah, Happy to be here, man. Happy to be here.
I
Thank
can
you
tell you,
for inviting me to share on this platform, man.
you're most welcome, and thank you very much for joining the Saudi Crest Show.
To
I
God be
must
the
say to
glory,
you,
man.
it's a pleasure. And people, this wasn't a long plan. It wasn't a 1 week invitation from Mr. Blake. And the fact that he accepted in short notice, it means a lot to me. And of course, I'm sure you won't regret and you won't forget this show either. Mr. Blake, one thing about the Saudi Crest show, as customary, but especially a man like you, I say you are the boss. you know, I would rather you to introduce yourself in a short way to our viewers because I'm sure that there are so many things that are important about Mr. Blake. And I personally don't want to miss out anything.
Uh,
So,
oh boy, I don't even know where to start. Paul Blake is the name. Not the singer. I can't sing to save my life. so, so I'm supposed to put out that disclaimer from early.
okay,
I
sir.
am from Manchester. Grew up in a rural district in Manchester, about 9 miles out of Mandeville, called Rose Hill. Typical country boy. I love the country, love nature. Grew up in poverty, just like the average person who lives in the country.
Yeah.
From a big family.
Hold on, Mr. Blake, hold on a minute.
Mhm.
Seems like I'm getting an issue here. I'm not seeing it popping up on YouTube. Just 1 second. Let me,
Okay,
just 1 second.
no problem.
Uh, why is this not coming up? Well, it's there. It's just the system. I don't know why. All right, so it is there, sir.
Okay.
I guess it's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
system
So
needs to refresh. Hold on. I'm getting a call here. Hold on. Good night, Miss Mac. All right, sir. So that was Miss Mac first. Miss McDermott calling.
okay,
I don't know if she's
okay,
having the same challenges that I have. But yes, we are live on YouTube. We are live.
okay.
So you
So
can.
so um, grew up as a typical country boy. Grew up in difficult situations.
Yes.
I I was from the common entrance era, and only persons born between 73 coming up to the 80s would understand what I mean. So I was one of those common entrance people. So I didn't do my two first common entrance exams
Mhm.
because I was labeled a dunce child, and that I think that put a kind of damper on my life for a little while. I did it the third time, and I actually got a scholarship to Knox College, and I transferred to Manchester High School because of health and also because of not being able to afford Knox College in that time. I didn't do very well at high school either, and probably because my parents got divorced when I was 15 years old, and I was in third form, and I can remember it was the same week of Gilbert, the great Gilbert.
Yes, man. I
Yes,
should
man.
have.
And it's something that I vividly remember. That was when, I was aware that my parents were breaking up, getting a divorce. So I think that had an impact on me right through my high school life. So by the time I got into fifth form, I think I passed about two or three CXCs when I did exams the first time.
Mhm.
And through the encouragement of my mother, I was able. My mother went and she spoke to the principal, and I was able to repeat. And I think I got another three or four subjects. So
Oh,
coming out of high school, one of the option was, do I go to college or do I go and work? I think work seemed more attractive at that time because you know just just hearing just hearing the amount of money that I
yes.
had to pay to further my education, I think that I just decided that I wanted to work.
Okay.
And so I ended up working for my first job was at a tire shop. Never forget that. I think I worked there for about a month or two. And then I went to Grace Kennedy, and
Yes.
I spent a good time at Grace Kennedy doing merchandising and sales.
Mhm.
And then I left from there and went to Singer Sewing Machine Company, where I spent another number of years working in sales. During that time, I think I had no purpose. I think I just went to work because you're getting money. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had no direction, no sense of purpose, nothing at all. And I think I just kind of felt very empty, feeling like I wasn't living.
Yes.
And my turning point came in 1998. I actually got baptized in 1998 because I think I made a decision then that I wanted a change. I wanted to live a life of purpose, and I knew that if I had continued doing what I was doing, I don't think I'd even be alive today. So that turning point came in 1998, and it was in that time I fell in love with just ministering to people, counseling. I was always one of those persons at school who people came and give and look for advice from, even when the advice wasn't good. so,
But how
so,
you know it was good?
so I entered ministry two years after getting baptized, and I went to we have our church has a school in Mona, Jamaica, School of Preaching and Biblical Studies. So I
Okay.
went there for 4 years, and I was at United Theological College and St. Michael's Seminary at the same time. So I was actually at three institutions studying at the same time. So I left UA in 2000, and I think I left in two. I graduated in 2007, and I went on did my master's. So I have a master's in counseling and psychology, and I'm also now completing a master's in theological studies. So at this point in time, I think that I have found my purpose. I think I've found where I am supposed to be. I am an author. I write motivational books. I'm also a motivational speaker, and I'm a marriage officer, and I'm also a counselor, and I'm also a publisher. I have a publishing company. This is me. This is what you see is really what you get, right? And I I strongly believe in what I call abundant living. I believe that all of us are here to experience a particular quality of life that God expects us to live. When He says in John 10:10 that I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly, I
Yes.
strongly believe that we are not just here to pass through, but we are here to fulfill a purpose. But we must find our purpose and tap into our God-given talents,
Mhm.
because it would be a sad thing if we leave here not contributing in anything to life. And I strongly believe that all of us are here to do that. So basically, that is me in a nutshell. I've been married for 16 years to a beautiful, beautiful Raquel Winter Blake, who is also a counselor. Both of us work,
Okay.
work in the same space. And I have one son who is 13 years old going on 30.
I tell you, what an introduction, people. How could Sadi Crest, how could I actually provide so much information? It doesn't matter what biography this man would have said to me. I'm sure that I would have missed so much. All right, so Sir Blake, you talk about abundant living. Yes?
Hmm.
Abundant living is purposeful living.
Yes, that is it.
Speak to us about that.
Um, I think that, as I said in the introduction, that we are not here by accident. We are created in the image of God. When I think of being created in the image of God, one of the things I think about is God putting His stamp of approval on our lives.
Yes.
And if God puts His stamp of approval on our lives, then it means that we are here to experience His greatness. We are here to make a contribution to the world. And sadly, I don't think a lot of people who are living their best lives. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that I think sometimes we misunderstand our why. And not only do we misunderstand our why, but many of us don't even know what our why is.
Oh,
And until we discover our why, we will just simply continue to exist. And a lot of us have a misconception of what abundant living is because we tie it to material things, and that is really not abundant living. I was actually doing some research this morning, and I came across the fact that there are many persons who are wealthy beyond measure who have committed suicide. So if that was the measure of abundant living, then boy, they are in a sad state,
very sad.
right? So abundant living for me has to do with finding your why, being at peace with self, being comfortable in who you are, making a contribution to the world. In other words, when I leave this life, what have I contributed to living? Whose life have I made a difference in? Um, can somebody look back and say, because I knew Paul Blake, I am better for it? Have I lived? Have I connected with the people around me? That for me is abundant living, because I strongly believe family for me is very important, utmost importance.
Yes.
And I believe that if you don't spend time with the people that you love, you have missed out on living life, right? So I spend a lot of time, encouraging persons to tap into their why. I believe also in shifting mindset, because I think that one of the reasons why we don't live our abundant lives is because of our mindset. The majority of persons that I come across have a faulty mindset, right? And you cannot begin to live until you have a particular mindset that is geared towards you meet the average person today and you ask them, what go on? Them tell us nothing not go on. Even when everything is happening around them, they will tell you that nothing not go on. Because the truth is,
They
if
don't.
you don't shift your mindset, then it will always seem as if nothing not go on.
You
So
know.
even in the midst of circumstances, I believe one can find their purpose, because it is not circumstances that control who we are. It is God who has placed his stamp of approval on our lives. And so a part of what I try to do is to get persons to tap into what is it that God has given you. And my purpose is not your purpose, and your purpose is not my purpose. So
Sure.
therefore, I have no reason to envy you for your purpose or try to pattern what you do, because all of us have a different purpose, and it is what adds to what I call the quilt of life. We're making a quilt, or patchwork, as our grandmothers would say.
Yes.
In order for that quilt to come to a spread, it has to have many components. And if you leave out one component, the quilt is going to fall short. And so I believe that all of us as human beings are a part of that unique quilt that God has made. And so we have to now put in our part, as small as it is or as big as it is, in order for it to come to what God has designed it to be.
You know, Sir Blake, I tell you the truth. The why.
Yes, the why.
I'm sitting here and trust me, just by listening to you, I've seen life in a different way. And I said life in a different way because so many times, or should I say on a daily basis, I have provided guidance for so many persons,
Hmm.
young and old. But if I had that knowledge, if I were listening to you earlier, maybe a year ago, if you have that same information, the why, that word, the term, the phrase, because of how it is used right now in this conversation,
Hmm.
is very powerful. It would have given so much of us something to look back at. And what's happening in our own society now? Because abundant living is purposeful living.
Yeah.
How many of us are living purposeful? Why are you here? Why our country is so corrupt? Why are we so violent? Why are we so selfish? We could use why in so many ways
Hmm.
that needed assistance.
Yeah.
But you know, you spoke about as a marriage counselor. You're a counselor for any basically life, if you want to call it. And sir, many of my colleagues, teachers and so on, who join the show on a Wednesday night,
Hmm.
I am sure that information tonight will be so valuable. And for that, people, if you're joining for the very first time, ensure that you subscribe, like, and share. And guess what? I want you to participate. You can ask your questions. You can post your comment in the chat, but you won't be able to do so unless you subscribe. The number for you to call 501 6625 876 501 6625. So back to you now, sir.
Hmm.
You have passed through so many jobs or which contain business
Hmm.
ventures. You are now in your own space. You're providing guidance. You have a company that does so, or an association.
Hmm.
What are the major factors, the regular issues that came to your establishment for help?
Um, I, I think the number one thing that I come across in terms of people seeking help is persons really not just not knowing what they want. And interestingly, I say that against the background that I deal with people on a daily basis who, if you look at them on the surface, it seems as if they have everything. Good
Wow.
jobs,
Yes.
careers, and everything. And they are just miserable. People who get up and go to work every day, drive nice cars, live in nice areas, but they are just miserable because we fall into this trap. Life sometimes can be an illusion,
Yes.
and a lot of times, one man says that the grass is always green on the other side until you get over there and realize that it needs watering. So
True.
we have bought into this facade that there are some things that will add benefit to our lives. So the education, the cars, the houses, the money, the glitter and the glamour, and these things are not the things that add benefit to our lives. All right. Les Brown in one of his speeches says that the majority of people who have a heart attack have a heart attack on a Monday morning. Why? Because they are getting up going to jobs that they don't like. right? And you find many of us are in that space. A lot of us are fearful of stepping out and finding our purpose because we are comfortable getting the paycheck at the end of the month, right? And we will do that for the next 30, 40 years simply because the paycheck is coming and it gives us security. But my question is, what is the purpose of security without peace of mind? I mean, it doesn't benefit. Let me show you another thing.
Yes.
Do you realize that the average person when they retire at 65, how long do you think they live? If
The
you if
average
you
person,
if
probably
you
10
do a
years.
research, the average person who retires between 60 and 65 years old does not live beyond 75 years old.
So they have a 10 year span
So they
afterwards.
have a 10-year span. So you work an entire 40 or 50 years of your life to live 10 years. Doesn't make sense.
But one would say, and my own knowledge is that
Mm.
that is basically the time that the Creator has given us on earth.
True, very true. But here's the thing that we often miss. While that is true,
Yes.
I am expected by the same creator who give me that span of time to live, not to start living for 10 years, but to live every day. So even while I am in that space where even if work is what I do and I love that job, I must also be living my life, a quality life. Many of us just look at the average person who works, and I think teachers are guilty of it more than anybody else.
My God.
Don't take time to enjoy life. And when I say enjoy life, I'm looking at even life in its simplest forms. No, let me give you an exercise.
Mhm.
If you should pick a point of any distance, about 200 yards, and if you walk in a straight line for 200 yards and you pay attention to nothing around you, you walk for that 200 yards and you pick a point and you stop and turn back.
Yes.
And when you're coming back, you pay attention to everything around you. You'll be surprised how many things you miss between 200 yards, just walking in a straight line. That is how many of us go through life. We go through life not understanding that there's a lot of things happening around us.
I
We
am
lose
not
out on
sure.
our families, we lose out on our children, we lose out on our friends. Many of us we don't see the necessity of living until those last 10 years. And by the time most of us are sick, because the work that we'd have been doing stress us out and everything. And then we have to spend all the little money that we have on our health,
Medication.
right? When what God says to us is that we should be living, we should be enjoying our existence.
You know, it seems like you have a real strong message for our teachers tonight. You know. Mr. Green is my colleague here, and he's saying that we are to be living our best life in the now and
That's
not
right.
tomorrow.
Very, very, very true. Living our best life in
Perfect.
the now. There is just so much about life to enjoy that it is amazing. It baffles my mind how we allow people who don't live in Jamaica to know Jamaica more than many of us.
Well, probably I'm guilty of that too.
And we have one of the most beautiful spaces on earth. And many of us don't know. The same thing that can add years to our life is the thing that we neglect so much. And that is a part of us missing out on abundant living. So when I talk about abundant living, I'm not talking about some magic formula that I create somewhere with some big words. You know, I'm looking at life in its simplicity, the life that God wants me to enjoy. That I mean, have you ever thought about it? People who have no God in them enjoy life more than God's people. Isn't that contradicting?
But what could have caused what could have caused such a behavior though, sir? Because I see it as a behavioral pattern now, especially for those persons who say have God in them.
Because we need a mindset shift. We need
Oh.
to shift our mindset, right? And let me look at something here.
Hold on, Sir Blake, before you
Yes.
go into that point, because I put this little message on board and I don't want any trouble on the show tonight. Have you also, as a Reverend Blake, and you see what Miss Matt Dermott come out to say? No, real living is living every day. We won't be preaching tonight. Yes, sir. All right, so you can continue.
Yeah. So um, when we look at life and we think about living, and I'm going to quote Les Brown again. Les Brown says, "When I die, I want to die empty." And for a long time, I contemplated what that statement meant. Because the truth is, many of us die full. One must not die full, one must die empty. When you die, there's supposed to be nothing left inside of you. But have you ever thought how many of us that live our lives and die with all of the purpose that God has given us in us? All of us die with our talents.
So true.
The richest place in the world is the graveyard, you know.
So many
Think,
finances,
think
so
of
many
think,
money.
think of all the inventions that would have died in the graveyard, all the speeches that could have been given, all the lives that could have been changed,
My God.
die in the graveyard, all the songs that could have been written, all the poems that could have been written, all the books that could have been written by people who lived and died full. And most of the times, it is fear that causes that. Fear of rejection, fear of thinking that I'm not good enough. Um, it is just fear right across the board,
Here.
right? And I can speak about that from a very personal place. I'm not talking about something that I don't know, right? Fear is something that continues to hold us back from pursuing our greatness, right? When I was I mean much younger, when I thought about having a master's degree, I mean that was something like it seemed so far
Perfect.
away,
That's true.
right? That boy, and I kept telling myself, a master's degree is not for people like me. Yeah, but why not me? Why not me? You
You
see,
know,
we keep doing these things to ourselves by telling ourselves that we are not worthy of some things. When the very book that we read says, God says that He causes His rain to fall on the just and the unjust. In other words, blessings abound for everybody.
so true. That mindset that we have, we grew up hearing about fixed mindset and open mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But I still believe that many of us have an open mindset, yes. But as you mentioned, there's still the fear
Yeah,
factor.
yeah, man. Fear.
Still the fear factor. Yes, Saskia, fear hold us captive. So you mentioned about teachers of guilty of working to retirement and so on.
Mm-hmm.
What is the message you have for our teachers tonight? Because that is not really the topic tonight. But since you mentioned that, and we know we have teachers here.
Start living. Start living, and don't wait until retirement. Find the things in your life that you enjoy, and let me tell you, I know people will tell me that life hard and salary this and salary, but look here, life has always been hard.
Yes.
Life never hard last week. Life has always been hard, and one of the things that I know is that as hard as we think life is, somebody else has it harder than us.
True.
And somebody who might even have a more difficult life than us is probably living their best life. Not because they count what they have, but because they realize that they are here for a purpose. And so I would want to encourage, persons to start living. And don't measure your life by what you have, what you own, but measure your life by the days that God has given us. Because at the end of it, we only went pass through this earth once, only
Only,
one time. So
only.
if we are going to own the pass through this earth once, then isn't it necessary to live our best life? No.
And that's the only time we can live in.
You know one of the things that I every time I travel, this thing just hits me like a ton of bricks.
Mhm.
Jamaica is one of the only countries that you can go in this world where you can pick a mango off of the roadside. We have fruits all year round. As one fruit season finish, another comes in. We have sunshine all year round. You ever go to some countries and feel the kind of cold that people work in, but we still
Yes,
have
man.
sunshine here, and we don't appreciate these kind of things. We don't enjoy them, enjoy these things. Many of us we don't even go out and sit in our backyard. We don't even know the tree in the backyard growing tall. I don't even know that the tree in the backyard growing tall, because all we do is work, 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 but we never stop to enjoy life. So my encouragement is really start enjoying life. And when I say enjoy life, I don't mean that you have to have money to start enjoying life. Simple things. But I mean, when last have you had a good conversation with somebody? Even if you sit down and chat foolishness.
Back to the
Because
days when you
we
can
we, we
relate.
allow we allow the hustle and bustle of life to take us over so much that we forget even to have conversation.
Is this serious?
And then we wonder why all of us so miserable.
Well, teachers, I'm calling on the teachers tonight. The educators in this country. If you haven't started living your best life, start now.
Hmm.
But Mr. Green still want to find out, and Mr. Green, I don't want you to change my topic tonight. Not because we're giving you so much information, but he's asking what are some practical ways to start living.
What are some practical ways?
To
Um,
start living.
First and foremost, you have to know why you are here. So you have to answer that question first.
Okay.
Why am I here? And one of the things that is very important is that in answering that particular question about why am I here, you have to be brutally honest with yourself, right? Yeah, I mean the man that is able to fool himself into believing something that is not is in a dim state. So you have to be honest with yourself. If you
Yes.
if you don't if you don't know your why, then it means that you have to get help, right? Because it really makes no sense. You drift through life not knowing what purpose you have. Because the truth is, all of us need a little help at some point in time,
You're right.
right? We need a sense of direction at some point in time. Even as a coach, I'm a life coach, but I have a coach who coaches me. Because as much as I coach people to live abundant lives, sometimes I also need a sense of direction and purpose.
Truth.
And
Yes.
so, what I think one of the things that we have to learn to do as human beings is to invest in our well-being. So, as practical as that, invest in your well-being. And when I say invest in your well-being, I don't mean that you have to get money, because money is just one simple aspect of it. But broaden your horizon. Look at, I mean, I do a lot of reading and research. And a lot of the knowledge that I have now comes from reading and research. And I think that there are resources out there that will help us and guide us to get into get to that. But by the way, don't leave out the Bible, by the way. If you can't get more practical than that.
True. Yes.
When you look at the book of Proverbs and the book of Psalms and Ecclesiastes, oh Lord, man. If you want to know how to live a quality life, check any one of those three books. Solomon says, the whole duty of man is to do what? Fear God and keep his commandment. You can't get more practical than that.
Yeah. Right, Sir Green. I hope you hear that loud and clear. Sir, that's so much for them. But let us look, zoom in.
Mm-hmm.
Really and truly, violence against our children,
Mm-hmm.
child abuse, violence, sir. Let us look at, see how you can take us through. Because we are, in my view, and probably in many other person's view right now, we are living in a violent society.
Yes.
But what do you believe? And I'm going to ask you this. If I'm wrong, you could say it if you think I take it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of biblical readings, what are your views? What could have led to our people be so violent against our children today?
Ah, boy. You know, when and you know, it's always going to come back to the foundation. we can't escape the
You can't leave
foundation.
out the Bible. All
Can't,
right, no
can't
problem.
leave out the foundation. Whenever we move away from God's design, anything will happen. You know, I don't argue religion and Bible because I believe the Bible says what it says already.
Okay,
And no matter how people disagree with it, it's still going to say what it says.
that's true. Printed words.
God has placed the family in this world as his unique creation. Therefore shall a man leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife, and the two shall become one flesh and multiply. That is what God intended the family to be. When we move away from God's structure, then anything else can happen. So a part of what we see now is us moving away from God's pattern. You know, I used to when I started my master's program, I had to do practicum, and I did my practicum at victim support.
Oh,
And I could not wait to leave because a lot of what victim support deals with is rape and domestic abuse. And much of it has to do with children. If we have 10 cases per day, 8 of them has to do with abuse of children or some sexual violence against children. And it's something that I really couldn't deal with. As a counselor, it is one thing I stay away from counseling. If I get cases like that, I kind of refer it to somebody else because I don't think I have the capacity to deal with that kind, because it is just too ugly and horrific. So when we move away from God's pattern, then this is what it results in. If you look at the last 20 years, the progression of the family, not only in Jamaica but even throughout the Caribbean, the more the family structure breaks down, is the more violent our society becomes. Right? The more we raise children without mothers and fathers in the homes, is the more problems we have in our society. The more we raise our boys without their fathers in the home, is the more violent men we create. The more we raise our young ladies in our homes without their father, because the truth is, every research will show you that having a father in the home has an impact on the future of girls. It has a serious impact on them. And that is one of the reasons when you look at, if you look at the statistics that are there with women who suffer domestic abuse, look at how many of them grow up with their fathers. Many of them don't.
Sir Blake, you know, this is the first I'm hearing. from anyone in this sphere of society, so to speak, counselors or leaders, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
We only talk about boys who grow up without a father, and we make a meal out of it.
Mm-hmm.
We found all the research, but this is the first time, sir, the very first time I'm hearing somebody alluded to the fact that girls suffer without their fathers as well.
I mean, the research is out there. The research is out there. I mean, if you look at the body of research that has been presented, the research strongly suggests that women who grow up with a father figure in their lives make better choices even where their life partners are concerned,
That is true.
right? And as a matter of fact, it also shows that even in cases of when women suffer domestic abuse, a lot of time it actually traces back to their fathers and how their fathers treat their mothers. So sometimes the very thing that you're trying to avoid
Mhm.
is the very thing that you end up in. So you see why the father figure is important? Because when you check, if you check little girls who are raised with a father figure in the house, and that father is a father, when they are looking for a partner, they will tell us that they want to marry a man like their father.
True.
And they will also tell you that they don't want nobody like their father.
Gentlemen, for those of you on the platform tonight, I hope you're listening. And this is true. We all who are fathers and who were grown up in such a way that we would have learned social graces, values, and we display such an attitude that is actually what needed to
Yes,
develop a society.
yes.
We are coming towards Father's Day, and speaking about the fathers and people, I'm saying this, I'm an educator, and I've listened to quite a number of persons. I've read some researches. Maybe I haven't followed the research. I do research and I read research based on topics, so let me
Mm-hmm.
admit. And I have never, for real, hear this pronouncement the way you have said it. We all always saying that boys are behaving this way because there is no father. But we have, trust me, counselors have never heard it being said. I'm not saying it is never done. That this girl is behaving because there's no father figure in the home.
Mm-hmm.
So to the fathers out here, I'm saying, and the prospective father as well. Father's Day is coming up, and I wonder why, sir. So since father is so important in every child's life, not just the boys, just to pity bank. But why is that like a Father's Day is so low key? A Father's Day is so, what did I say? Um, seem not as important as the coveted Mother's Day.
All right, let's go back to the foundation again. Everything that God creates, He creates perfect and good. And the devil has the intention of tearing down everything that God has created good. If he's going to destroy the family, where does he have to destroy first? The leader, the head.
It's true.
He has to get rid of that. The only way that that can be done is by using the very same society that God has created to honor and glorify him. You know, just look at how important the male figure is in the lives of children. I went to a particular school in Clarendon one year to do a presentation. And when I went to the gate, the only male figure in the entire school was the security guard at the gate. Let me say that again. The only male figure in the entire school was the security guard standing at the gate. And this school has been a problem school for many, many years. And the bulk of the problem comes from the males, male children. The male has a place in our society, and how society is constructed right now. The society is bent on destroying the importance of the male figure in the society. And that's why we have so much gender this and gender that, and everybody's gender confused.
My God. Too confused right about now.
Right? If you destroy the very fabric that God has created, then everything else is going to tear down. And women can't do without men, and men can't do without women. I mean, it matters not what we say. We could be independent from now until eternity. That God designed that men and women come together to create families. That is what He designed it for. So if you destroy the fabric of God's creation, then what happens after is a gradual breakdown of the very thing that we are trying to preserve.
True.
If you look at let me just give you an idea here. When Mother's Day comes around, every store, every sidewalk, every nook, every cranny, something for mothers. You can hardly find a Father's Day gift on Father's Day. Some people don't bother stock anything in their stores for Father's Day. And I strongly believe that this is one of the tools that the devil has used to destroy the pattern of God's family, the very foundation. And if that can be destroyed, then it is no reason why we have the kind of problems that we have in our society today.
So, I'm not gonna go there tonight because that is not our topic. As RR says, gender. But look at who pop up in the show. Real talk.
Cause what you doing?
Mr. Uriah Shanti Blake. Big up yourself, Mr. Blake. No, I mean, we always have these challenges where we might look at life, our gender as a little biasness.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at our society in terms of, you know, who are creating the violent conduct in our society, the first answer or the quickest thing will say the males.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a number of females who are involved in violent conduct.
Mm-hmm. True.
More so, it possibly being equally male
Mm-hmm.
and females are involved.
Yeah.
One of the things, because of the gruesome activities sometimes, it is seen from the males. But violent right now generally is right across the board, both
Yeah.
sexes. But how do we tackle this?
We have to get. I think the only way we're going to tackle that is that we have to get back to the foundation of things. And this is where governments and so churches come in. We have to get back to building our families, right? Even the problem even exists in church, Church don't even talk about building families anymore.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man. We don't emphasize building families. As a matter of fact, nowadays, church come in like a motivational speech more than telling people how to live. So if you see, and I don't want to get myself in trouble, because
Please don't. Please don't.
no, the truth is we have we have a solution. Part of the solution is building back the family as God intended. Getting back to the point where the village raised children, where my child is your child and your child is my child. We have to get back to those places. When I was preaching, I preached at church on Sunday, and I tell you, and I was relating an incident. I was coming back from Linstead on Saturday night, Saturday evening.
Yes.
And coming on the highway, the news came on, and it was then I learned that the little girl Daniel had died. And you know, I tend not to get emotional over stuff, but when I heard the news that she had died, I mean, tears came to my eyes
I hear.
because my son was sitting beside me, and what flashed through my mind immediately was it could have been him. When did we get to the point in our lives as a society where we don't value the lives of children, where your child is not my child and my child is not your child? It baffles my mind how and I am not speculating, but there are so many things that would have gone wrong that led up to that little girl's death. Where where were the people who were supposed to be protecting her? That is the question that I'm always asking. Yes, all of that happened, but my
Mhm.
question, the biggest question that for me that must be answered, where were the people that was supposed to be protecting her? And that is part of the problem that we have. We have reached a point now where we don't protect each other. We don't protect our children.
You know, you ask the question who or where were the persons? But I ask who are the
See,
persons responsible for protection?
that's
And I
that,
say that
that's
to say because everything that you mentioned, you goes back to foundation. My thing is what we are seeing now with violence, or crime and violence, child abuse and so on is particularly our topic now.
mm-hmm.
Most of those disgusting behavior are those who fall out of grace already gone.
Yeah, true.
Those who grown up, those who are born or grown up without a male figure around them, those who attended school without a male teacher or a male staff member, that already gone through the gate. But in that light, so if they are out there, I am now believing that some of the solutions need to come from the top.
Boy, if we wait on that, we're going to be waiting for a long time,
Oh my God.
we are going, you know,
Because we have been waiting.
let me tell you, there's a particular school that I work with. Just started working with them. And last week, or well, for the last 3 weeks, I've been going there.
Mhm.
And I am, dealing with four young men who, by virtue and description of who they are, might be written off as problem children. But you know what dawned on me when I sat in a session with all four of them? Yes, they give a lot of trouble, and yes, their behavior need to be curbed. But what they needed more than anything else was a listening ear. I spent about an hour and a half with them, and just the fact that I was there listening to them made a difference. And by the time I left them, I saw no longer problem boys. What I saw was boys who had hope.
True.
But somebody needs to exercise some kind of patience and grace and forgiveness with them, which we don't find a lot in the school system. And not due to any fault of the school system either, because sometimes we blame teachers and principals for. But look here, we have to
Yeah,
understand we live
it,
in a real world.
it's a fault of the school
And
system, yes. And let me cut you. Sorry to cut you
yeah.
into. It's a fault of the school system, sir. Why is it a fault of the school system? Not necessarily the fault of the principal or the teachers, but the
Hmm.
system in general. For
The
example,
system, yeah, true.
the system is woefully short of human resources.
Yeah, well, true, very true.
The
I agree.
teachers and the
I agree.
principals in the schools are not necessarily trained to deal with some sort of behaviors that we experience.
Yeah, and I agree. I strongly agree with that.
And
Very
you,
much.
sir, who have that knowledge and skills, who can express yourself in different ways to reach the minds of those young men that you spoke about.
Yeah.
We need more persons like that to come into the schools.
And that is why I am, I willingly give my time to these kind of initiative. Why I sometimes I wish there was about 10 of me, because there
So you
is
probably need
just
to train a few people like myself.
I mean there's just so much that is needed. And the school system, the principals and teachers cannot survive under the weight that they're under right now, because we are dealing with some real problems. We have children in school, especially boys, who are antisocial, have an antisocial personality disorder, who they have no remorse over some of the things that they do. They feel absolutely no sense of emotion or regret. And when you check back, where is this coming from? I remember a few years ago, I met a particular young man at a school who, I mean, in all my years of studying and hearing about antisocial personality disorder, I met that young man who, boy, I can tell you, him fit every definition.
Right?
When you look in the DSM-4 and you look at the criteria for anti-personality disorder, he fit every single one.
Everyone.
And he was in the school system. And the guidance counselor of the school was asked to deal with him while she's dealing with 400 other picnic. And I mean, I started dealing with him and I realized, I mean, I don't even know if I got through to him. But I tried my best. But he's only one. In schools, you have like 10 of him dealing with, or 20 or 30 or 40 of him dealing with, both male and female. How is the school system? I for the life of me, I cannot understand how you can have a school having more than 500 students having one guidance counselor. Don't make a lot of sense to me.
But what is it, those who don't have any?
And there are those who don't have any. So it means therefore that we need to, and by the way, you know, we admit that there is a shortage of resources, and the limited that we have can't go around. But I also believe, Mr. Sautik, that sometimes schools have to get creative.
Yes, that's true.
You might not have a lot of guidance counselors to spread across the schools, but you have persons who will give their time. You have persons like myself who will give a 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours per week. We have to tap into those persons,
It's
because the
like,
truth is our children need help, right? And sometimes we focus on the children without also focusing on the support staff, right? How often do we think that even our teachers need counseling?
wow.
You might not need one-on-one counseling, but I guarantee that our teachers need somebody to come in at least once or twice per month to motivate them and tell them that, boy, whole strain, especially when you get the salary at the end of the month and you can't stretch go any further. So I honestly believe that we can change our entire society by just some creative means, because the truth is other persons have done it, so it can be done again, right? So tap into the resources, tap into the church, and this is one of the places where I believe sometimes the church has failed. And when I say fail, I mean fail miserably, because the things that we are supposed to be focusing on, we have lost our focus in many of those areas. We are more concerned about the church building fund and how much we collect at the end of every service, rather than looking at what are the needs of the very people that we have in our congregations. We are focused, we have ministers who are focused on driving expensive cars, and we're in fancy suits, and being called to sit at every meeting where they can be profiled, rather than looking at the needs of the very people that they serve. And then we come back now and wonder, why is it that we have the kind of problems that we have in our society?
And those are the persons that misled a lot of us.
That's right.
Because I growing up now watching you as a pastor, and the first time I recognized as a young boy as a pastor, you were walking. But then a few years time, you have been driving an expensive car. And then at that point, I can't have a word or two with you. You are too busy.
Exactly.
That is true. And it comes right back to where we start in terms of foundation and our school system. So, I decided and I said to the other show last night, was on sports, and I said that everybody coming on the show. And even if you don't plan to come on the show, but if you heard, wear a black shirt tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I am actually mourning, sir, from Friday. The moment I tap into that news of little Daniel Rowe, that is excess child abuse. Maybe that past abuse now.
Man, that
But
that is a that it's a heartless act. It's heartless. And a part of my problem is that this is not the first time something like that has happened. And it keeps and I said it to my wife on Friday when we were coming, that all of a sudden the discussion becomes about putting in perimeter fences and cameras and all of that. Why are we so reactive as a society? Why can't we be proactive?
but sir, it's a shame though. Sir, you hit the nail on the head. Because every time I have conversations with principals, especially principals whose schools were rated as unsatisfactory,
Mm-hmm.
one of our main pointers that would have given such a grade or ratings is the fact that our perimeter is not fenced. And these reports would have gone to the powers that be. We're unsatisfactory because there's no perimeter fencing. And the government have chosen not to even look at it.
And then you know what is the sad thing? You go many years without having that perimeter fence, and the minute a tragedy happens,
You want to put it in.
not even want to. The minute a tragedy happens, within 6 months you get a wall built around the entire place. Sometimes you get all a wall where you don't want.
It's more like a prison wall.
More like a prison wall. My question, and it is not only in this case, but we are so reactive as a society. We are not very proactive. There are many things that we can do something about before tragedy strikes. And we still continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, hoping to get different results from it. And it will not happen.
Do you think, sir, child abuse in our country is seriously being looked at?
No, I think that there is much. I think there's much more that we can do, because as a society, I think that and this again is not something from the top of my head. It's something that I've researched. There is there much of the abuse that is taking place is not even talked about. So what we see sometimes is just the scratch of on the surface. There are many children who are suffering in silence, but it is not being spoken about. It is happening in school. It is happening in churches. It is happening in the home. It's happening in communities. And I think that it is time that we adjust it. And it must begin, especially with our laws. When men and women abuse children, they must feel it when the powers that be holds them. And I think that is woefully missing from our society. When you look at, have you ever looked at sometimes some of the sentence that men get for raping children,
Or for raping any at all?
or for raping any, no, let us start with children. Children, the most vulnerable in our society. You how can a man rape a 5-year-old and get 7 years in prison? That doesn't make that don't make no sense.
But you talk about these things, and I've listened to. I think I've listened to all clippings that came out of Parliament. I think it was yesterday, from Member of Parliament down from St. Anne, Lisa Hanna,
Mm-hmm.
and the Prime Minister himself. And the key factor, or should I say, the key statements that those two spoke about, that child could have been their own.
That's right. True.
And this is not the first incident has happened, and the same comments they made over and over again from different people.
Yeah.
When they started this Amanda alert, is it still in play?
I mean, I sometimes wonder how effective that is. And you talk about the talking in Parliament about being their child. It's sad that I have to make the statement, but had it been their child, it would have turned out different.
Of course. We
It
probably
would
would
have,
be
it would
we
not have been
probably,
the same.
we probably would be asking mercy for the persons who they believe commit the crime.
Exactly. So until and as a society we are like that. It's not just about Parliament alone.
No, right
But
here on the ground.
we oftentimes don't speak about injustice and evil until it hits us where it hurts. So we have become so insensitive and callous to the suffering of other persons. And it is only when it hits home that we begin to make a noise and our voices become louder than everybody else. Injustice in one place is injustice right across the board. It's time we stop operating in two Jamaicas, one for the rich and one for the poor. Justice must go right across the board.
So let me tell you the truth. Talking about it, I don't have a very large fan base, but I am happy for the 800 and odd persons who are with me on this show
Mm-hmm.
or on the channel, subscribers. But I am giving the police until the end of this week to come up with some serious statements based on investigation leading to, not, I don't reach a conviction, but at least leading to the conviction.
Yeah, man,
Because,
we can't continue like this as a society.
sir,
It's
I don't know. They put out, using their intelligence, they put out a photograph of what they believe is the suspected person who involved,
mm-hmm.
who, as the police said, who may can help in their investigation. But what I have seen, that person probably have a complexion of mine based on what I have seen.
Mm-hmm.
But yet still, the report is saying that it's a fair or a brown skinned person.
Mm-hmm.
There was some video footage somewhere. Where are they hiding? You're saying to me that you rather use that intelligence to do your investigation. But Sarah, we're black. And I'm saying, come next week, I want to lead a charge. I don't know if all my followers will follow me,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to see the police and every single Jamaican
Yeah, man.
who have a,
It can't be business as
we need
usual.
to put out all to get this thing to very good closure. We can't continue. I don't remember. I mean, recently there was one in Westmoreland.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like every month. And there are a number of other abuse or abuses that we have not heard of.
Yes, man. There are many that we don't hear of.
And you know the reason why we don't hear of it, sir?
Mm-hmm.
We're covering up.
Yeah.
And we don't want our names to be called.
And one of the myths that we need to also dispel is that abuse of children is not a poor people thing. It happens right across the board,
Of course.
rich and poor alike. The only issue is that because of where the poor are, sometimes it is easier to hear about what happens, but as you go up the hill, everything becomes hidden. But it happens right across the board.
We have gone what? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So what, 6 days?
Hmm.
I remember recently when we have the strikes and the whole issue of government overpaying themselves, the echoes were so loud around Jamaica
Yeah.
and by extension around the world because it's all over social media.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to compare the sentiments of that, how do you call it now? Mismanagement, so to speak, from the
Yeah.
government. Yes, a lot of us we speak loudly on it. But look at this incident. Answer is just a few. When you go on social media, just a few of us
Yeah,
speaking
man.
about it.
Where are the voices of rage and anger?
I've not seen the media, the what you don't call now, not social media, but the regular media, sir,
Hmm.
mainstream media, away from when the police goes out to do something, they follow behind them. I've not seen anybody take it up on their own. Well, I'm sure maybe tonight, I haven't seen it all angles. I'm sure that lady will take something on. But this is the thing that I'm talking about. Everybody want to be interviewed and that's it. Where is the justice for our children?
There must be. You know,
Child abuse.
a society that loses its love and protection for children is a society that is going nowhere fast.
I hope they're listening. Sir, we're talking about violence, and I want you to want to ask the
Hmm.
question that I want to ask, and I want you to put it in the most, I'm not gonna say raucous, but plain way, so the people can really look into themselves and
Hmm.
understand. What impact does violence have on our children, on the future
Oh
of
Lord.
Jamaica?
If you if you look throughout our, especially our school system, for the last 20 or so years, even how our children play has
Yes.
changed. Their play is getting more violent, more aggressive, and we have seen it spike even during COVID and after. It has a serious psychological impact on our children, and it sets their growth back by years. The kind of violence that they are exposed to, it doesn't allow them to bloom to be the butterflies that God intended them to be. Our children are exposed to some things that children should not be exposed to. Yeah, and a lot of it is coming out of the home,
True.
right? I am glad, and I give God praise every day that I am able to take my son from home to school. But how many parents can do that?
That is the thing.
When we leave our children at the mercy of our taxi drivers and bus drivers, who they see the violence as they travel from home to school. Our music is violent. How we drive on the road is violent. The conversation in the bus is violent. What do we expect them to do? And how do we expect it to impact them? And we see it play out in the school every day. We see when a fight happens. I mean, I remember when I was going to school and a fight happened. It was fist fight. And the most you might get is a cocoa. Rarely somebody might pull a stone. That don't happen in school anymore.
So
Because our children are learning from the environment around them, and it affects them psychologically. Just as a matter of fact, let me just flip something here. Look at the impact that violence has on us as adults. Look at how violence affects us emotionally and psychologically. And
True.
we are
And
adults who our brains have been developed as adults
to deal with
to
certain
handle
situations.
certain emotional things and psychological things. And we can barely stand up under the strain of dealing with those things. Think of what a child goes through, who's that child's brain is not yet fully developed. If it impacts us in this way, that to the point that we stress out, and because I mean, if you listen news on a daily basis, is enough to get you depressed. And if we can barely manage under that strain, just think of the kind of impact that it is having on a child. And you multiply that by the amount of children we have in our society today. And if we don't do something about it, it is going to get much worse.
But what can we do?
Get back to the home. And this is where I think even the church comes in now. We have to get back to teaching our parents how to parent. Some of our parents are children. A lot of our parents are children.
I tell you, just no
So we
doubt
need
about that.
we need to get back to the place where we start using our church buildings and so forth to serve our communities. You know, I I I made an offer to a church the other day, and I'll tell you, sometimes when our leaders lack vision and purpose, I mean, but Jesus says, I mean, the Bible tells us, where there's no vision, the people perish. If the blind lead the blind, the two of them will fall into a ditch.
True.
I made an offer to a particular church the other day, and I said I am willing to come in, and I'm willing to host parenting workshops for your community. All I'm asking is that everybody that comes to the workshop contribute $1,000, $1,000, and it was too much.
Wow.
And I'm saying, but you expect me to travel from where I'm coming from to get to where you are, and then the only thing that you're going to tell me after I'm finished is thanks, and it has cost me to get here. I said, beyond that, I had to pay over $2 million to study. It's not that as a matter of fact, I want to earn from my degree. That's what I paid for it for.
And that's your job,
Right? That's what I
your
do.
qualification.
And if I go into the corporate space and I host a workshop, I can earn $50,000-$60,000 for speaking less than an hour. And I'm saying to you, I am willing to come in and host this. For me, it's a minimum charge that.
Yes.
And you're going to tell me that the community cannot afford it.
But can the church subsidize that?
Can
Could
the
the
church
church subsidize?
subsidize it to help? I am willing to come for 4 weeks, 2 hours for 4 weeks, and help your parents by hosting some practical workshops. You see, if we don't do some of these things, and I can tell you, and I have to warn churches, don't expect people to come and give their service free. I can tell you, it is an ungodly position, but we need help, and there are people out there who are willing to help. But some kind of sacrifice has to be made.
And one must understand knowledge and information is costly.
It is.
And it's the lack thereof why we are in this
But
situation.
the price of ignorance is greater.
My God, you're pushing it very deep, sir. You're you're hitting
Knowledge
the
and
nail on the
information
head.
is costly, but the price of ignorance is greater.
But when you look at how the churches respond, and maybe just tell me, sir, you are a reverend and you understand how churches operate. But would you believe it's too early for us to hear the church coming out on this situation with Daniel Rowe?
No, no, not at all. As a matter of fact, I think we should be the first talking.
Exactly.
We should
And
be at
that's
the head
real.
of the line.
And so this is where it is. And we continue to say the church is not doing so much or doing enough. But one would have believed, Sir Blake, that the church sometimes involved or being guilty of allowing these things to continue.
Oh Lord, you're you're touching dangerous waters now. But true, true.
That's
Um,
it's a reality.
you know, what one of the things that I always look at as a minister and as a counselor, there's one thing that is always at the front of my mind, that when somebody comes to me for counseling or care, they are entrusting to me the most inner part of who they are. In other words, they are placing their very lives in my hand
Mhm.
and asking me to take care of them. And when I trample on that, then I have now contributed to destroying a soul. Always aware of that. When somebody who you look up to as your leader destroys you, it's almost as if there's no coming back from that. Because you have entrusted to this person the innermost part of who you are as a human being. And I think that many times as leaders, as church leaders, we don't understand the kind of influence and impact that we have over the lives of people. And sometimes, unfortunately, we are the very persons that often turn around and destroy people's lives. Because we move from servanthood to serving ourselves. And we forget what Jesus teaches about. Jesus says, yeah, you have to learn to serve. And our lives as ministers of the gospel, we are servants. We are called to serve people. And that basically for me is the highest calling of anyone's life, to serve people. And because you are in that particular position, then you have to guard people's lives as if it was your own.
True. Sir, this information and the way you have put across not just ideas, but if you are listening like myself, and I'm speaking to those out there, you'd have gotten some solutions to some of these problems that we face with. But, sir, a counselor, a motivator, first of all, for the parents and the families of the children who have been brutally killed, who have been abused by other older folks, how do you talk to these parents? How do you counsel them?
You know, there's again, I keep going back to the foundation.
Mhm.
Sometimes, it is known where to start sometimes. And one of the things that I've noticed, in my years of counseling persons, especially in moments of crisis, that sometimes the best thing that you can do for them is to be like Job's three friends.
Yeah.
Job's three friends went and sat with him for 7 days and said nothing. And I believe it was the best time of Job's life. Because the minute the first one opened his mouth, Job's world started falling apart. And so even within the space of crisis, I think sometimes the best thing that we can do for persons who are going through these kind of things is to just be there for them. Begin by letting them understand that you are simply there for them. You might not even know how to start help them,
True.
but just by being there and letting them know that they can lean on you until they are ready to deal with the issue. That's where it starts. I think that sometimes even in tragedy like this, we send in all kind of counselors and they start talking. Sometimes people don't want to talk, but they want somebody to be there. And I think that is the essence of the entire thing. Be there until they are ready to unload.
Okay. So you're saying then when the Ministry of Education, so to speak, would have organized a number of counselors to visit a school or a family home, it's not all that effective.
I think sometimes it, well, let me put it this way. It depends on what they go there and do,
Okay.
right? Because I mean I have been in situations where counselors have gone to a school where some tragic or something has happened. Some student has died suddenly. And all that the counselor goes there to do is not to talk, but to hear them talk. So sometimes all that the counselor is a facilitator.
True.
So the
That's a good one.
counselor goes and sit and says, all right, come and talk to me. And you would be surprised how much people unburden in sessions like those. Rather than me going there and start telling you about, do this and do that. Sometimes people are not in that space. As a matter of fact, most of the times people are not in that space. But if you go and be a facilitator where they can unburden on you, and that's why we have to have more than one person going, because when people start unburdening, it can get overwhelming,
That is true.
right? But
And
we have,
it's
in
it's
other
a,
words, we have to make sure that the help that we are giving is help that is needed.
true. That is important. That is important. Let me read this one. Roma Francis. Good night. It is always someone who knows the victim does the wrong.
That's, yeah, 90% of the time, that's true.
So that means a case like this wouldn't be so hard to solve, sir.
No,
These cases are not difficult because a young child, my interaction with children, because I interacted right now at work with children from
mm-hmm.
age 4 through to 12. These kids will not just pick up themselves and go with somebody who they don't know.
True. That's true.
So the
That's
investigation shouldn't be so difficult, in my view. This long thing that, even when this little girl probably buried and, some persons are healing, that's the time they're coming out to say, you know,
yeah.
no,
Only time will tell. Let us, pray for the parents that they find closure as soon as possible, because this can be devastating for parents.
it is.
It's not me, and I know how I feel, much as the person who is going through it in real time.
So, it's one of these things that many of us tend to forget.
Yeah, true.
Many of us tend to forget.
Sometimes it is easier to forget.
Exactly. And if we continue in this vein, what I'll say to you, Jamaica, tonight, and to the world, to my fans watching, we need to take a stance. Not just follow Sadi Cress or Mr. Blake talking about we need to do this. But we all have an understanding and we all have knowledge. We have
Yes.
some level of skills that can negotiate good from bad. And that is one of the main things I believe. Whatever area, through whatever medium, whatever platform, I am suggesting that we let our voices heard. And remember, the voices can heard through words as well, through written form.
Yes, that's right.
And I want to lead a charge, Jamaica. I want to lead a charge to ensure that this case does not go unanswered. We are going far too long with these violences against our children. Child abuse is rampant. And I say that to say sometimes I wonder if we do understand what child abuse is. So some of us, I can tell you, I spoke to adults from time to time, and some people believe it's just the mere, those little physical beating, let's say a flogging
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
a child gets at home or wherever. There are some words that are spoken, some words that are
Verbally, psychologically.
sexual abuse,
Yes.
and persons continue to do it because there's no judgment.
Yeah. True.
But, sir, coming to the end of the show, but I want to put a little twist to this.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned earlier that the men who continue to rape our children, to murder our children, has gotten some little time in prison, come back out. These are not all your words, but they have not served, I believe, what they deserve. There are a lot of calls now for corporal punishment. What is your take on that?
Um, you know, sometimes we are guilty of arguing from an emotional state.
Yes,
But I am one of those persons who I believe in research that is done, and I usually follow the research that is done. If it is something that's factual and sensible.
yes,
I mean, no society that has capital punishment or corporal punishment, it has never been a deterrent for crime. None. Even in societies that have, the strictest of punishments for persons who run afoul of the law, people still break the law anyway, knowing that they will suffer the consequences. So I don't honestly believe, I don't believe that it is the best form of punishment for anybody.
you don't think
No, I don't. The research doesn't support that at
hands
all.
will
But
deter?
what I do support though is that the punishment must fit the crime.
But what punishment does? What is the punishment? Because unless you're gonna look at life imprisonment,
That is good enough for me.
but life
That's good.
imprisonment
Yeah, man.
for those criminals.
Take for instance, when they said that you're sentenced to 25 years at hard labor. Most of the time we forget the hard labor part. If a man is sentenced to 25 to life at hard labor, then he must do hard labor.
But there's no labor going on,
But
much
there's
less
no
hard.
labor going on. So it means that we need a whole legal system and
So we need
prison
to
reform.
strengthen. Then we need to strengthen
Yes, we need an entire
us.
reform and overhaul of our legal system. The consequences and the punishment that go with many of these things, all of these things need to be reviewed, and punishment must fit crime.
So we have been talking for over an hour and a half, and I know your information needs maybe about 4 hours. But people, for you to get the full understanding of what Mr. Blake does and his results and findings, recommendations, and so on, he will have to do some presentation. He has data that he could present to us. But that will take us into another show. That will take us into another show. But, sir, we are coming to the end of the show. And there's a question that I want to ask you.
Hmm.
As it relates to this present case now, Little Row, what are your recommendations? One, to the school. Secondly, to the Ministry of Education based on the utterances that they have made recently.
Mhm. First and foremost, for the school, my recommendation is that um, they should do everything that this such a tragedy never happens again. All the stops must be pulled out that nothing like this ever happens again. To the Ministry of Education, I'd want to say that it is time for us to stop being proactive and stop being reactive and be proactive, because there are systems that should be in schools that are not in schools. And if we don't do something about it, then this kind of tragedy will keep happening over and over again. Right? We're talking about putting in CCTVs and so forth. My question is, who will pay for it? Who's going to maintain it?
That's another big
It's one,
story.
it's one, it's one thing to come up with all of these grand ideas, but the question is, who's going to foot the bill?
The school.
Right? What are the other kind of systems that we can put in place, starting from the very basic until we get to that place where we can put in all of these things? There must be some basic things that we can do as a school, as a Ministry of Education, that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. Because the truth is, it should not happen.
Tell
So
you,
I would strongly suggest that it is time to stop the talk shop and act to protect our children. Because at the end of the day, it is our children who suffer.
to your final words to Jamaica, to the fans of the Saudi Press Show.
Ah, Jamaica is not so far gone that we can't save Jamaica. But Jamaica can only be saved if all of us come together and do the great thing that God expects us to do. Right? We can turn this place around if we start being our brother's keeper. We start unifying, and we start, you know, going back to the time when the village raised children and everybody looked out for each other. That is the only way that we are going to save this island.
I must say to you, sir, you couldn't have said it better. But those who have ears, let them hear. I am so thankful for you to be here tonight. I will be inviting you, sir, for part two.
No problem.
And this time around, we'll be taking it from your perspective. Abundant living is purposeful living.
No problem.
Mr. Paul A. Blake, marriage officer, of course, one that is so elated to help people. He's a coach and mentor, personal development, marriage officer. He speaks on parenting skills. This is a man who is now a big fan, a big member of the Saudi Press Show. He's the man that we'll call upon to offer. And don't be afraid, people, if you need the services. If you need the services. And so I don't know if you want to leave a number.
Yeah,
Or
man.
what.
My numbers 876-835-6524. That's 876-835-6524, or 876-385-7217. That's
Okay.
876-385-7217.
Or three. So the first one is 876-835-6524,
6524, or 876-385-7217.
Okay, so let me put that first one that I get. I'll just put that one in the chat so they can see it and they will go back to it. They will get through at some reference. Mr. Blake, thank you very much.
You
Thank
are
you
most
for
welcome.
gracing the Saudi Press show.
Yeah,
And I'm
man.
sure, sir, you have added much value to this Saudi Press YouTube channel.
God bless.
Have a very good night and thank you. All right, people. So thank you again for joining. Thank you for staying with us as we continue to bring the information to you and, of course, what you want to hear and what you want to learn. This was a show that we was looking forward to, and I'm sure that the voice of Mr. Brown, the information that he has shared with us, of course, will help us not just solving crime or violence, but put us in a better way to deal with these minor issues before they get to the stage of never to return. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Sorry Question. Tonight was a night of educational content, but one with a different way. Let me thank you. Let me big up all of our sponsors. Of course, all our well wishers. All of you who participated in tonight's show, a big thank you. Miss Roma Francis will continue to be here. Yes. Also, Saskia McDermott, a counselor, very dynamic counselor. Yes. We also have RR, this program class monitor. Thank you very much, RR. You're always on the show. Your comments was very interesting. Christopher Green, thank you too. We also want to say hi, big up Denton Pummels, aka Flasher, who joined. Mrs. Jacqueline Simpson Huntley and Mr. Huntley. Thank you for joining. And continue to join the Saudi Press Show while we continue to educate our people in the most respective way and informative. So the number for Mr. Paul Blake, if you need him, 876-835-6524. And if at so you forget, you can always make the Saudi Press TV, the Saudi Press Show, at 876-501-6625. This is where we leave it tonight, people. And I want you to remember, we'll see you on Friday, where we look at sports and entertainment. I also ask for you to pray with the families, the immediate family of Daniel Wood, the school family of the Brayton Primary School. I want to acknowledge and I want to, in some level of remembrance, remember the children who have passed through violence. It has been a long road. We need to end that journey. Thank you very much.